Here's the thing about your movie, why I made a curator's pick of the Hollywood Fringe Festival. Community, heart,
Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to another edition of BlackBook Mondays. We're excited today. You see, we talk about the fact that Black power is a three-legged stool requiring social justice, economic might, and our political agenda. Not the Democrats, not the Republicans, but our political agenda. So, without further ado, let me introduce who's going to be here today. We got, once again, Ms. Teresa.
Good morning, everybody. With Legal Shield, your legal beagle.
And we got my man with the plan, Mr. Crazy D.
What's going on, people? Listen, LordlandFilms.com, we have the new podcast entitled Nothing But the Facts. It's up there. First 2 episodes up and running.
Great. And we got a representative here, Mr. Rodney Smith.
Hello, everyone. I am Rodney Smith, running for Congress to represent Nevada's 4th Congressional District, which is where the historic West Side resides, and our 88.
Thank you. So great. We're going to spend our time here letting Mr. Smith talk about the Black agenda. But before we do, a little housekeeping real quick. Our sponsor, Ultimate Tax Services, Mr. Richard Harvey. If you need to have some tax needs done, please give him a call, 702-875-6293. 702-875-6293. He is also participating with the Black Business Council and the Black Book on our Tuesdays financial literacy groups. We're going to be talking about tax time again on this Tuesday from 6 to 8 at Nehemiah Ministries, 3606 North Rancho. Again, 3606 North Rancho, Suite 102, sponsored by the Black Book and the Black Business Council. So come out, and if you need to have your taxes done, we can help you with that. If you need some information, come on out. But it's tax time. We need to not just be here for tax time, but we need to create a strategy for the future. Okay. We're going to be talking about the Black agenda because, again, one of the legs of the stool is we must have our political agenda. Let me tell you something, what's going on today. Many of our politicians are not talking about the real issues. They want to basically do a bait and switch. I'm going to give you a good example. Lately, we heard people talk about gun control after the school. Well, we had the Democrats talking about gun control, and we had Republicans talking about mental health because the folks who were doing it looked like them. The real terrorists that came out that day, but they don't want to call it what it is. But really, we need to talk about the root cause. In that issue, let me tell you what the fact is, and it starts at the top. When you have a president that won on a platform of hatred, bigotry, elitism, and racism, the chickens have come to roost. But yet neither one of these parties want to talk about the root cause and the real reason. They want to talk about a Band-Aid and something that you can't really solve unless you solve the issues we have in America. We have a lot of problems there. A lot of the politicians today believe, and that's folks who look like me and people who don't look like me, that they can't win if they talk about a Black agenda. Well, let me tell you something. You can't win unless you talk about a Black agenda. The days are gone where we're going to continue and be a minority. The days are gone where we're going to continue to be urban. We must take back our image and be Black and proud. And we must demand a criteria. We must demand an agenda that speaks on the ills of the Black community. Because guess what? If we heal the ills of the Black community, the rest of the United States rises with the tide. So, without further ado, we're gonna invite Mr. Rodney Smith. He is an independent, and he's independent. And I'm gonna tell you something. He can win if we get behind him. He can't win if we don't. He is one of the few politicians willing to talk about the Black agenda and to come on here and let us know what his thoughts are about us. So, without any further ado, Mr. Rodney Smith, welcome to the Black Book.
Hey, thank you, Brian. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be on your show. Actually, I appreciate you having the show where we can talk about Black business, which is a part of the Black agenda. When people talk about here Black agenda, They think that this is something that's going to only impact one group. And the reality of it is since this country has been here, black people have always enhanced the country. And every time something has been done that has improved the condition of black people, it has improved the condition of all people. I mean, we can just go back to the fact that most people have their wealth today because of black people. People have the right to vote, everybody, because of black people. Women's suffrage came about because the abolitionists moved from doing that to women's suffrage. So, and the list goes on and on and on, whether we're talking about the LGBT community, whether we're talking about the immigrants and migrant workers. It doesn't make a difference. Whoever you are in America, you are and have what you have because of black people. So the black agenda really is the American agenda. I like to tell people that to a certain extent, America is lucky to have black people in multiple ways. One of those ways is, unfortunately for us, luckily for them, we tend to be the canary in the coal mine. Whatever happens to America happens to us first.
Al, you're right.
Whether we're talking about drugs, I mean, remember the crack epidemic? Now we have the opioid epidemic. It's a national emergency. Well, maybe if they would have put things in place to take care of the crack epidemic, we wouldn't be having the opioid epidemic. We have a high rate of unemployment in this country affecting black and browns, but predominantly it's impacting African Americans. Folks talk about an increase in the minimum wage, and they say, well, why is it that you want to talk about black people? Well, if there's an increase in minimum wage, it actually increases wages for everyone. It just so happens that the folks who are most impacted by it are us. I looked at a statistic just this weekend, and it was talking about the average cost just to be able to live in a house, to rent something. And you would have to make about $18 an hour to have just a decent place to stay here in Nevada. That is outrageous considering that the minimum wage is half of that. So there are issues out there that we have been talking about as a community for decades. I mean, since I was a little child. And we're still talking about those issues. What I would suggest to everyone, if we want to get past the point of just talking about it and being impacted about it, that we're going to have to come up with an agenda that focuses on empowering us, giving us access to capital, not just access to capital though, but giving us the capital, giving us opportunities at those business contracts to be primes, even to be subs. Is there a black bank here in Nevada? We know that historically, African American financial institutions lend money to African American businesses. As a matter of fact, if you look around where there are black banks, you will see black businesses thrive. So one of the things that I would say that we need to do here in Las Vegas, in Nevada, is we need to get a black financial institution here, whether it is a credit union and or a bank. We need to have that here. We need to have it in our community so that we can get those loans at a good rate. Because it's one thing that sometimes we may get the loan, but the rate of interest on that loan is higher than everyone else, even if we have the same financial literacy, same financial background. There's so many things that we can do, but we have to have an agenda so that we can tell it to our politicians, those people who want our vote, and then we can hold them accountable. We cannot afford, and our children, and especially our grandchildren, cannot afford the bankrupt policies that are impacting this community. And the reason why I say bankrupt is look around and tell me how many new black businesses, how many successful black businesses do you see? How many black home developments do you see? We have black construction companies here. Maybe it takes us to let our elected officials know that we want to give those companies opportunities to build right here in our community. Affordable housing is coming to a crisis rate, and of course that happens to impact black people more than anyone else. We have got to do something, but we have to do it now. We really can't wait, because our children sure won't be too happy with us if we do.
Great, great. And folks, I want you to think about something. This man is coming in. He's a veteran. He served the country. He's not doing this because he wants to make a name for himself. He's doing it because he saw a need. He saw the community needing somebody who wanted to come in that was different from what we have. And I commend him because I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if I'd do it. I truly tell you that I know where my lane is, and it's not politics, but I will talk about the politics. Rodney, obviously social justice is a very, very big point in the black community. It's funny, I've seen some of the women's groups now talking about the increased incarceration of women, but it's actually black women, probably more than anybody else. But the bottom line is, we do have problems, mass incarceration. We do have still problems of African American men being killed or beaten in the street for minor incidents from the police. So give us your opinion on some of these issues as they pertain to the black community and social justice.
Well, Brian, before I do that, you mentioned that you might not run. And let me tell you, this was not an ambition that I grew up having. I served my country wearing its uniform for 26 years. So I thought I did my time, I did my service. But it was when I got out of the military, when I got more active in the local community, that I saw that there was a need. You know, when we joined the military, we take an oath. And it's really one of the few oaths that I've ever taken. And a part of that oath is it says that we defend this country from enemies both foreign and domestic. And some of the policies that are impacting our community almost makes it seem like that there's an enemy out there that's attacking us. And maybe there is an enemy that's attacking us. And somebody needs to defend that just as fervently as when I wore this country's uniform and protected us from enemies foreign and overseas. I also have a granddaughter. And when I look into her eyes, and she's looking so happily, and she's looking towards me because she needs everything from me. And then I think about what is her opportunity to have a life similar to what I have, to what we have. As a little black boy growing up in the Jim Crow South, I had a greater opportunity for future success than folks who grow up in Las Vegas or any place else in this country that looks like you and me. And that cannot stand any longer, nor can I sit and enjoy the wonderful life that I'm blessed with, knowing that she may not have that same opportunity as I did as a little black boy in the Jim Crow South. We can do better. It's not saying that the folks who have been in office haven't done anything. What I'm saying is that we have to do more because we are losing faster than we are gaining. And with an attrition rate like that, it won't be long before we will be powerless, we will be broke, and then the potential future for our children, and especially our grandchildren, it simply just won't exist.
And I think we need change because some of the politicians have been in office so long that sometimes they forget what the mission is for the people in the community. And so I think it's time that we get new blood in office, new change, people that's going to stand up for the community and really help the community.
And I'm going to take it even a step further. We've been bamboozled again, I love to use that word, into believing that we have only two, Republican or Democrat. And I say that because I am an independent black voter. I may lean Democrat, but unless they start leaning back to me, you can't use Trump the boogeyman. You need to be able to talk about the issues pertaining to us. And that's what Rodney's willing to stand up and do as an independent, is saying, hey, there is a third alternative. And guess what? The same folks who didn't believe, who looked like us, who didn't believe that Obama would never win, found out that he won. And it started with nickels and dimes and dollars and quarters, but people sent him dollars to help him keep going and running. So one of the things I'm going to ask you, if you like what you hear and you like what Rodney's doing, consider supporting his candidacy financially, because guess what? We cannot continue to give no dollars to our politicians and then complain because the PACs tell them what to do. The PACs tell them what to do because they bring money along with what they want you to do. Well, if we want to take back our communities and to take back our legislators, we have to support those legislators who are committing to come in and listen to the people first. So Rodney, back to you.
So you asked me about social justice. Most of the times, what black people want, and like any other American want, is we don't want to be treated less than. We don't want to have two sets of rules. One set for other people, and then another set of rules that's applicable to us. We don't want to have to go with driving while black. That should not exist. If you have some type of infraction on the highways and roadways, it should be because of that infraction. You shouldn't be stopped because you're black. There shouldn't be walking while black. In other words, the cops stop you, the police officers stop you simply because you're black. And when it comes to sentencing, that needs to be equal as well. As an example, we have a young woman-to-be here in Las Vegas, and she was bullied in school. And she went to the school resources that were available to the adults for help. They didn't give her help. This went on for 3 years, and it's documented. Now, the young lady, like anyone else, she got to a breaking point. And she did something that she shouldn't have done, to be honest. And she put some comments out about doing harm to a school. And we have an environment today where that's very sensitive. But it doesn't change the fact that she did not do it, and she was bullied and didn't get any type of relief from anyone else. Now, this young woman, not only did she get arrested, but she got charged with felony. She got charged with a terrorist act. Now, there's people who have killed tens, 20, many people in this country. Now, they didn't get charged with terrorism. The only thing that we can determine is it's that those folks happen not to look like us.
We're held to the letter of the law and we're used as the example far too many times.
Yeah, it's like being on the 1 yard line. You have 4 sets of downs, and then next thing you know, someone up at the top puts you back 20 yards, takes away 3 of your downs, and you're not at the 1 yard line getting ready to score. Every time black people get to that point, there's always some kind of change in the rules. So, knowing that, and looking at the situation that we have, Rodney, and knowing, like Claude Anderson said, that we were a protected class in this country, but somehow the politicians got involved who may or may not have had our best interests at heart and started changing it to minority, and all of a sudden people with disabilities. And I respect the people with disabilities. I'm glad that the sidewalks were put in for people who are wheelchair bound. I'm appreciative of that. I'm appreciative that the LGBTQ A through Z gets rights, but the rights should not be on the back of black people. So my question is to you, should we be pushing towards not only the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, but pushing towards getting a title of a protected class exclusively for black people that cannot be touched by minority or by people who are humpbacks or midgets or such and etc. I mean, that's the way Claude Anderson describes it. So, it's for emphasis, but that's the question.
Especially in the business sector, like here in Nevada, where they count minority and we end up with very little of the fruits.
So the answer to the question is, because of the plight of African Americans, of black people in America today, there should be a protected class designator for black people separate from minority. So yes, I do agree with that. Now it has to pass constitutional muster, but until you push for it, then there's no opportunity to ever get it. And it is something that is of high interest to me. And this is at every level. This is not, I'm running for a federal office. But I want to dispel a untruth. And many people say, well, Rodney, some of the things that you talk about impact the school board. Some of the things that you talk about are city issues or county issues or state issues. You're running for a federal position. And what I have to say about that, leadership is across all levels of government. We should be able to talk about issues that involve us and impact us at whatever level it does. As a matter of fact, I think that the person who holds that federal office should be leading the charge for these things and help everyone else get on board. Because many of the times the money that comes in for these other offices come through those federal offices. So I think it's critically important that we use the bully pulpit of our office at every level to push some of these issues.
And one more thing, what do you think about reparations, Rodney? And the reason why I ask that is there is a segment within our population, within our Black African diaspora that believes that we don't need reparations, and they say we can do it on our own. But when you actually check history, even the white folks say we pulled ourselves up. It was great ingenuity. It was the American dream. And we find out what the American dream really was, that they got assistance. We have farmers who get paid not to farm, and they're still talking about that they do not want to give reparations to us for what is owed to us for building this country. So what do you believe about reparations? And let me put this as if I hear another person say, even if you don't agree with it, let's think like a monolith. Let's just get it and see. But if I hear another person say, we don't need reparations, we can do it on our own, that is not true, because no one in this country did it on their own. So what's your thought on reparations?
Right.
Reparations is a dead old. Dr. King talked about that check that came back with insufficient funds. Well, that check's been bouncing around ever since he was talking about it, and it's still bouncing. At some point, we're gonna have to stop that bouncing, because this country has its wealth, and it's noted as the wealthiest country on the planet. It has it
For the 1%ers.
because, in general, the country has money. And that's another myth that we need to dispel. Now, you're absolutely right that money is concentrated in a very select few. I mean, the disparity in wealth, I don't think hasn't been this big since the 1920s. But directly to your question about reparations, it is a debt that is owed, and we should not stop until we get that debt. Now, when people say reparations, we do have to identify, like an agenda, is what is reparations for us? Is it so after slavery, Grant and Lee knew that the newly formed group of Black Americans, of African Americans, could not thrive in this country if there weren't certain provisions set up for them. That's partly why we have had the Freedmen's Bureau. As a matter of fact, through the Freedmen's Bureau, which Frederick Douglass ran for a while, we had a black bank. If we look at the HBCUs from the land grants gave us an opportunity for academic achievement in this country. And why that's important is because they knew that the rules that were set up in this country, were for educated people, and you had to own something. Remember, we didn't own the clothes on our back, and not even ourselves. And we created this wealth for everyone else, the land that they own, and then we had to go and somehow, after slavery with no education, buy or get a place to rent from the people that we helped gain their wealth. So we have always been behind the 8 ball.
Okay, great. A couple of things. I got to do a few housekeeping. Then we're going to come back to you, Rodney, because we're going to do some more with Rodney. And I want to say this. If you're interested in supporting Rodney, there are a couple ways. Rodney, I'm going to let them tell you exactly where. You said there's somebody on the line. Okay, come on the line. Speak up.
Hey, how y'all doing?
All right.
I just have a comment towards the reparation thing. It does seem like a dead issue, and I believe that if our people that's in power, that's having all this money, these sports players, business people come together, and we get a TV station where we have more power in the media, that we could produce more positive influences within our community, that would impact us just as well.
Brother, let me say this to you. People who own TV stations also get subsidies. So even if all the athletes got together and bought this station, they still have to get subsidies, and it still has to come through the government. The government has to pay what it's owed. That's why there's always an argument about public television and PBS, and why PBS is always there trying to get the funding, while one party or maybe both parties are trying to cut the funding from them. We have to make the government pay us what they owe us.
Yeah. Hey, and we're going to talk to this some more, brother. I appreciate.
We have to educate our community on how to bring these laws in place to stand up as a community to make these things happen. We are dumbfounded on how to even make laws come, how to make all of this happen.
There's actually legislation that is actually written to go into law, but there's people we're not thinking like a monolith to go on ahead and say, let's go ahead and push this through to see what can happen with it. Yeah. There are people who have written legislation for it. We just don't know anything about it, because maybe we should research that. It is on YouTube.
Exactly. And we're going to talk about that on another show, because we only got about 3 minutes late. But I appreciate you calling in, my brother, because we're going to have Rodney on some other shows and some other ways to actually talk more about his agenda. But the first thing we have to do is vote in the right people. We have to look at just outside of the Democratic and Republican Party and say, look, we have other options, and we have to create alliances with other groups so that we put the right people in that talk about our agenda. Now,
let's say real quick, we have to get out and vote. There's many that believe that Trump got in office because people did not go vote, because they didn't think that he would get that job. And now look at how our country is being run.
Absolutely, you must vote.
Doesn't it feel refreshing to hear a person that's running speak about our issues? Is that too much to ask?
Yeah. Hey, and here, because I'm getting a sign here. Real quick, in closing, folks, mark these dates. 3/27 is the special election for Ward 5. 3/28, the Independent Black Voters Group is going to have a mixer. Please come out and find out more about the Independent Black Voters, sponsored by the Black Business Council and the Black Book. 4/28, Soul Sessions, their 5th anniversary, and 10/23 through 10/28, the Black Business Week. Rodney, we thank you for coming out. We will have you back on the show. And how can we support you on your candidacy?
Go to on Facebook, Rodney Smith for Congress CD4. You can also find me on the web at Rodney Smith for Congress CD4. There's a donation button there, and we need money to make this a successful campaign. We have the right issues, but we need the money to push those issues.
Donate.
Yep. So either you help out or shut up. But the bottom line is, let's go out and support this man, because we need to make a difference. We need real change. And this man is trying to help us change. Thank you again, Power 88. Thank you, my man, Brian. Always do a great job. And we will see you next week. Again, it is important to vote.